They didn't kill me. They turned me into a legend, then tried to cage the legend they created. That was the first truth Kaelen Voss remembered as he awoke in the dark, his wrists shackled with seared plasma binds, body slumped in a containment cage suspended in a transport bay. Overhead, the sky was no longer blue, but an endless expanse of violet storms rolling like the breath of some old god. There was no earth. No faction. No flag. Only the number burned into the collar at his throat, 0247. Gladiator class. Property of Kaer Thalos. The dropship roared through cloud cover, descending toward a continent-sized pit of metal, fire, and noise. Kaer Thalos. The arena world. A planetary coliseum built for blood and broadcast. From orbit, it resembled a scar carved into the planet's surface. From here, it looked like a mouth ready to swallow him whole. Kaelen had heard whispers during the rebellion years about this place, where legends didn't die but were drained for spectacle. Where every soul became a subscription. Now, he was content. 2 guards yanked him from the cage. They towered over him, exosuits humming with synthetic muscle. Kaelen's boots scraped metal as he was dragged down a corridor that reeked of blood, ozone, and something worse, despair calcified over centuries. Prisoners watched from containment cells. Some stared with hollow eyes. Others grinned like jackals. One spat. Fresh meat. Inside a prep chamber, a voice crackled over the intercom. Subject 0247. No name. No past. Designation, flesh. You will enter the arena in 60 seconds. No weapons. No mercy. Survive, or entertain. The floor trembled. The crowd outside chanted in dozens of alien dialects. Somehow, they all meant the same thing. Flesh. 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 Kaelen closed his eyes. He remembered survival in the mud, on backwater colonies. He remembered killing with a shovel, eating with bloody hands, dreaming with a loaded rifle under his pillow. He remembered who he used to be and how little that mattered now. The gate dropped. Sunlight roared in. The arena floor stretched wide, a bowl of obsidian and bone-laced soil. Holographic banners rippled above. Drones floated, ready to broadcast his death to billions. Across the arena, a steel hatch opened. Gorvath. The creature emerged like a nightmare made real. 7 feet tall. Covered in serrated armor that bristled like porcupine quills. Its arms were split into multi-jointed appendages that could pierce concrete. Glowing red photoreceptors tracked movement, adjusting with clicks like camera shutters. Kaelen had no weapons. No allies. Just instinct. The monster shrieked and charged. He rolled sideways, narrowly avoiding a spiked limb that slammed into the sand and punched a crater through it. He sprinted toward the arena's edge, dodging a second strike, then circled. The beast followed. It regenerated. That much he remembered from Rebel Intel. Sever a limb, it grows back. But its photoreceptors, those were exposed. It needed them to track and predict. Kaelen shifted tactics. He ran directly toward one of the reflective arena walls, a curved, polished surface meant to enhance light shows for the audience. As he passed, he ducked low, then flung a handful of sand into the air. The monster stepped into the light beam. The reflection caught its optics full force. Gorvath shrieked, momentarily blinded. Kaelen didn't hesitate. He vaulted upward, grabbing onto its forearm, and climbed. He smashed his elbow into the soft joint at the base of its skull. It flailed, roaring. Kaelen grabbed a shard of its own armor, wrenched it free, and drove it through the base of the skull. The arena fell silent. Then exploded. The crowd howled. Fireworks burst in the sky. Drone cameras zoomed in on his blood-slit face, his heaving chest, his trembling hands. But he wasn't looking at them. He was looking at her. In the VIP observation deck, behind layers of forced glass, a woman stood alone, still, stunning. Her skin shimmered in shades of midnight blue. Her hair was bound high in a warrior's tail, jet black and flowing. Her armor was both beautiful and lethal, a revealing, curve-hugging suit laced with pulsing light veins, exposing power more than skin. She didn't cheer. She didn't blink. Her silver eyes met his. In that moment, Kaelen didn't feel like a gladiator. He felt seen. She wasn't looking at a spectacle. She was watching a variable. A shift in the pattern. A disruption. She wasn't a fan. She was a fuse. Kaelen turned back toward the corpse of the monster, and for the first time, he smiled. She didn't see a product. She saw a blade. And blades were meant to cut. Kaelen twisted, elbowed his ribs, but Drace held firm. The blade came close. And then he dropped. Not because Kaelen overpowered him. Because someone else stepped in. A blur of blue. A hum of energy. Saphira and HYF moved like water through flame. One moment she was across the room, the next her leg arced clean through the air, cracking against Drace's skull with the precision of a seasoned killer. He collapsed, groaning. Kaelen coughed, rubbing his neck. Thanks. Saphira didn't look at him. Her eyes were on Drace. They are watching, she said. All the time. Waiting to see who lasts. Who breaks. Who becomes content. She turned to Kaelen, her voice low and deadly. This wasn't about him. It was a test. Marlowe chuckled from the floor. Of course it was. Everything is. Even breathing. Even blinking. A soft voice broke through the tension. He won't die. You hit him just hard enough. Kaelen looked toward the final occupant. She sat in the darkest corner, cross-legged, silent until now. Her skin was a soft lavender, eyes large and glowing faintly. She looked young, too young for a place like this. But her gaze was older than the others. Lyra, Marlowe offered. Sees more than most. Talks less. Lyra tilted her head. You calculate movement before it happens. But you hesitate. That's not from fear. It's because you're waiting to be sure. Kaelen stared at her. And what do you see in her? He nodded toward Saphira. Lyra didn't answer. But the flicker in her eyes said more than words. Marlowe gathered up his gear, muttering. You want to survive this place? Learn the rules. First, everyone here is either broken, bored, or bait. Sometimes all three. Second, no one fights because they want to. They fight because something in their skull pulses when the system says go. Kaelen frowned. You mean, neural triggers? Exactly, Marlowe nodded. Kill switches. Neural lace feedback. They hijack your instincts. Make you think it's your choice. But the choice was made the moment they tagged you. Kaelen sat on the edge of a metal bench. His mind was racing. If what Marlowe said was true, then even his own rage could be pre-programmed. Saphira leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Her armor caught the low light sleek, revealing, but functional. Every curve of her form whispered danger. That's how they keep the show running, she said. Let us think we're warriors, legends. But we're just their script. Kaelen studied her. You speak like someone who's seen behind the curtain. I helped build it, she replied. Once. A long time ago. Marlowe laughed dryly. Oh, don't let her humble act fool you. She was the icon. The firebrand. The flame of Leden. Until the whole thing burned down. Saphira's jaw tightened. I was a symbol. Symbols are dangerous. So they break them. Or worse, they recycle them. She looked at Kaelen. Her gaze was no longer cold. I am not a flame anymore. I'm the ash that remembered how to smolder. The room fell silent. In that moment, Kaelen understood. This wasn't a prison. It was a crucible. And they weren't just survivors. They were all sparks. Waiting for something or someone to ignite them again. They called it the duel of shadows. But it wasn't a duel. It was a message, wrapped in choreography and framed for the stars. Kaelen stood at the center of the arena once more, heat rising from the synthetic sand, his breathing steady despite the roar of 100,000 spectators. Above them, drone cameras hovered in perfect orbits, their lenses drinking in every twitch of muscle, every bead of sweat. Across from him, Saphira NYX approached with the slow elegance of a queen entering court. She was radiant. Her dark armor shimmered with energy lines, her blue skin catching glints of sunlight, her long black hair tied high in a battle ponytail. Her expression was unreadable. The announcement blared in dozens of languages. Presenting Kaelen Voss and Saphira NYX. The duel begins now. No weapons. No instructions. No mercy. But they had spoken the night before. Briefly. In glances and in silence. And that was enough. Kaelen moved first, a wide arc, theatrical. His foot kicked up dust just so. Saphira dodged and countered, spinning with a grace that bordered on dance. The crowd roared. The Ascent Cam system caught every second, broadcasting it to systems light years away. To the untrained eye, it was war. To them, it was performance. They clashed, again and again, fists meeting forearms, knees grazing ribs, but never hard enough to break. It was violent poetry, each strike feeding the rhythm. Their bodies told a story of rivalry, of love lost, of tension ready to snap. The arena devoured it. Kaelen swept low. Saphira flipped over him, landing in a crouch. He lunged. She parried. Dust spun around them in golden halos. Then came the shift. A loud hiss, a mechanical whine, and the ground behind them split open. A new challenger emerged. The Talon Beast. Four-legged, low to the ground, its body shimmered with optical camouflage. Its surface rippled, duplicating the sand around it. At times it looked like three creatures. At others, it looked like none at all. Its claws glinted like razors, and its breath steamed with chemical vapor. The crowd went silent in anticipation. Saphira glanced at Kaelen. Phase 2, she murmured. They split. Kaelen ran left, drawing the creature's attention. Its head snapped toward him, all four legs moving with inhuman speed. It lunged. He dodged, barely. The creature passed through a light beam, and for an instant, it vanished completely. Not gone, just hidden. Saphira used that moment. She leapt toward the center of the arena, toward the solar glass tiles embedded in the sand. When she landed, the heat shimmered around her. She twisted and shouted, "Bring it through the reflection." Kaelen understood. He drew the Talon Beast toward the center. Its multiple mirage forms flickered. The heated tiles, enhanced with layered smart glass, began to reflect its own distorted image not accurately, but fractured, delayed, glitched. The creature lunged and in its optical haze, it saw an enemy. It attacked itself. Confused, enraged, it twisted midair and slammed claws into its own limbs, trying to shatter what it thought was another predator. Its camouflage shorted. The crowd gasped as the illusion broke. Kaelen didn't wait. He vaulted, grabbing a shard of exposed armor from the earlier fight, and hurled it like a spear. Saphira followed, leaping, catching it midair, and driving it into the beast's chest. The creature thrashed once, then collapsed. Silence. Then eruption. The crowd lost control. Screams, cheers, waves of digital confetti burst from the stadium rims. Drones flew lower, encircling the victors. The ascent cam locked on their silhouettes as the sun dipped behind them. Two figures, backlit by glory. Kaelen and Saphira, breathing hard, side by side, not smiling, not basking. Just enduring. A new overlay appeared on the largest holographic display, the Infinite Twins. A brand. A title. A beginning neither of them had asked for. Kaelen glanced at her. They think this is a show? Saphira's lips curved ever so slightly. Let them think it. For now. They left the arena to a storm of worship, watched by millions. But only they knew what had truly begun. The man who stepped into the chamber looked like a statue sculpted from ambition. His face was flawless, not a blemish or crease in sight, but his eyes, one human, the other mechanical, never blinked. They didn't need to. He hadn't needed to in years. Kaelen recognized him before Saphira spoke his name. Veyrandal. The name dropped like a blade in a quiet room. Half of him shimmered with living alloy, lines of synthetic muscle shifting under polished plating. The other half was pure theater, high cheekbones, hair swept back with unnatural precision, and a voice like silk stretched over wire. Saphira. Still alive. How? Persistent. Kaelen stepped slightly in front of her. You built this place. Veyron smiled. No, I merely perfected it. They stood inside one of the arena's control spires, its walls pulsing with data and ghost light. Surveillance feeds shimmered across curved glass, showing not just the arena floor, but training cells, audience metrics, even emotion trackers fluttering in real time. Why bring us here? Kaelen asked. Veyron tilted his head, his synthetic eye flickering. Because people believe in stories. And stories need heroes. He stepped closer. You don't need to believe me, Kaelen. You just need to let them believe in you. Saphira's voice was sharp. You used to fight for something real. I still do, Veyron said softly. But real change doesn't come from chaos. It comes from control. He turned to Kaelen. I watched your fight. Not just the moves. The pauses. The timing. The restraint. It was perfect. And Saphira, well, she was always the better half of any myth. Together? You're irresistible. Kaelen narrowed his eyes. You want us to play your game? You already are, Veyron said. I just want to produce the finale. He tapped a panel beside him. A projection flared to life scenes of Kaelen and Saphira fighting, surviving, standing together. Cheers from crowds. Hashtags. Digital posters. Simulated fan chants. You see? The galaxy already adores you. What they feel, we shape. What they cheer, we choose. You're not gladiators. You're the pillars of a new narrative. Kaelen looked at Saphira. Her face had gone cold. Not with fear, with memory. He wasn't always like this, she said quietly. We fought together. For freedom. He said symbols could move planets. But then he realized he could control the symbol. Veyron didn't flinch. And you? You preferred to burn it all down. That was always your flaw. He turned back to the feeds. Do you want to know the truth, Kaelen? This arena isn't entertainment. It's infrastructure. A psychological regulator. Every planet that subscribes, we monitor emotional surges. Control spikes. Balance anger with awe. The Infinite Twins? You're not a show. You're a stabilizer. Kaelen clenched his fists. So the entire system runs on fake feelings. Feelings are real, Veyron said. We just package them. Manage them. Prevent war, unrest, famine. All through narrative equilibrium. Saphira stepped forward. And when we break character? Veyron's voice lost its warmth. Then the illusion fractures. And the chaos comes back. Kaelen stared at the man, half machine, half memory, and saw not a villain, but something worse, a believer. You're afraid? Kaelen said. No, Veyron replied. I'm invested. Silence stretched between them. Then Veyron extended a hand. Join me. Not as prisoners. Not as pawns. As partners. Help me steer the story. Kaelen didn't move. Saphira turned away. Veyron lowered his hand. It doesn't matter. The galaxy already believes. All I have to do is give them the ending they expect. The doors opened behind them. Drones waited. Veyron gave one last look, not cruel, not angry, just calm. Be ready for Act 2. Then he vanished into the data flow, leaving only echoes behind. The plan wasn't elegant. It wasn't clean. But it was the only shot they had. Deep beneath the surface of Kaer Thalos, in an access corridor forgotten by all but the maintenance drones, Kaelen stood with Saphira, Marlowe, and Lyra, each of them outlined by the pulsing red glow of emergency lights. Above them, the world screamed in cheers for the next arena spectacle. Below, they were preparing to tear that world apart. Marlowe leaned over a fusion-spliced map, his fingers dancing across a tablet that buzzed with static. The E-Pulse tower isn't just a transmitter. It's a feedback loop. It syncs crowd emotion and amplifies it back into the system. We blow that, and the whole structure stutters. Lyra watched him, her glowing eyes narrowing. And the tower is protected by biometric locks, motion sensor grids, and 2 AI-linked security gates. Which is why we need a distraction, Saphira added, checking the charge on a modified pulse disruptor. Her voice was calm, precise. Something loud. Something emotional. Kaelen nodded. Let them think we're still playing the part. While we rewrite the script. What they didn't know, what none of them saw coming, was Drace. He had been missing since the Infinite Twins' last broadcast, quietly absent while the rest of the facility hummed with whispers of rebellion. It was Marlowe who suspected something first. Too quiet, he said. When killers go silent, it's not peace. It's poison. They move anyway. The entrance to the E-Pulse tower was hidden behind a vault panel in one of the arena's data processing hubs. The team split. Kaelen and Saphira would breach the interior, Marlowe would reroute security protocols from a junction console, and Lyra would monitor transmission spikes and keep them ahead of patrols. The first gate fell easily. The second made them bleed. By the time they reached the tower's core chamber, a spiraling column of crystal arrays and data streams humming with artificial emotion, Kaelen knew they were no longer unseen. Alarms didn't sound. But the air changed. That subtle shift in pressure that meant someone else was in the game. It happened fast. A hiss of steam. A shimmer of movement. Then Dre stepped from the shadows, flanked by 2 sentinel drones. His one eye glowed cold. "I told them you'd come," he said. "They didn't believe me. Said you were too careful." I said no. Kaelen Voss always finishes what he starts. Marlowe swore under his breath. Saphira raised her weapon, but the drones locked on instantly. Kaelen didn't speak. Not yet. Not until he was sure. Drace looked almost apologetic. "Almost. I made a deal. They promised me rebirth. Clean neural slate. Upgraded bioframe. No more past. Just future. You don't understand what that means. But I do. I remember everything." Lyra stepped forward. "So do we. That's what makes us human. Then you're fools." The first shot came fast. A stunner bolt clipped Marlowe in the leg, sending him sprawling. The second bolt, meant for Kaelen, never landed. Lyra intercepted it, throwing herself into the path without hesitation. Her small frame crumpled with a cry. Saphira unleashed hell. Her disruptor hissed with violet arcs, overloading one drone and sending it into convulsions. Kaelen charged the other, shoulder-checking it into the core housing. Sparks flew. Glass cracked. Drace vanished into the dark, running for an emergency lockdown switch. "He's sealing us in," Marlowe shouted, dragging himself upright. "We trigger the charge now or never." Kaelen looked down at Lyra. She was still breathing, barely, her hands trembling as she reached for his wrist. "Don't stop," she whispered. "Make it mean something." Kaelen stood. "Get them out," he said to Saphira. She stared at him. "Not without you." "You will. You have to." He didn't wait for argument. He sprinted toward the core, climbing the platform, dodging cascading sparks and auto-defense sensors that were starting to reboot. He slammed the charges Marlowe had prepped into place, one by one, across the crystalline interfaces. The tower began to hum louder. Emotion, raw, unfiltered, began to leak from the systems. Whispers, laughter, screams. Echoes from across the stars. Kaelen grit his teeth and punched the final activation. The detonation wasn't fiery. It was soundless. A pulse. White. Clean. Instant. Every screen in the system went blank. Every channel broadcasting the Inferno Twins froze. And then replayed the truth. Uncut footage. Raw feeds. Data logs of manipulation. Graphs showing spikes of sadness, joy, rage, all timed to arena events. A cascade of reality flooded the stars. On distant worlds, viewers blinked in confusion. Then horror. A storm of awakening rippled outward. In the rubble of the tower chamber, Saphira knelt beside Lyra, who now clung to consciousness. Marlowe leaned on a shattered console, eyes wide. "We did it," he whispered. "We lit the fuse." Kaelen emerged from the smoke, bleeding, exhausted. He looked up at the ceiling, now a skylight of stars. "Truth isn't something you broadcast," he said. "It's something you detonate." It was called Blood Ascension, a spectacle so grand it had its own galactic holiday. Veyrondal ensured every star system was watching. Billions tuned in. Billions expected glory. What they got was something else. Kaelen stood in the central lift chamber, armor sealed, heart pounding. The chamber rose steadily, rumbling beneath his feet, illuminated by golden light. Next to him, Saphira tightened her gloves without a word. Across the circular platform stood 4 other warriors, champions from distant worlds, each wrapped in reputation and mystery. The lift crested the platform with a roar, revealing the arena in its full, overwhelming majesty. Towering statues, waves of fire at the outer rim, banners descending in slow digital rainfall. Holograms lit the sky above like constellations of war. Veyron's voice boomed, carried through the arena's entire atmospheric shell. Welcome, Galaxy. Witness the culmination of your myths. The blood ascension had begun. Kaelen stepped into the sand, the crowd's roar hitting him like a wave. To his left, a massive insectoid warrior spun dual blades. To his right, a twin sister pair from the crystal moons of Velareth floated inches above the ground, their eyes glowing with eerie synchronization. Closest to him, a brute from the Sargon wastes cracked his knuckles, covered in layered armor that pulsed faintly with kinetic charge. They were not allies. The opening flare fired. Kaelen moved on instinct, dodging left as a blade nearly took his head. He spun, only to see Saphira parrying a sweeping strike from one of the floating twins. The insectoid screamed, rushing toward him. Kaelen ducked, rolled, and leapt to his feet just in time to see the Sargon brute unleash a concussive punch toward Saphira. She flew back, hit the ground hard, rolled. Came up firing a pulse blade. They are targeting us, Kaelen growled, backpedaling into position beside her. Saphira nodded, fury in her breath. They've been programmed. Subtle neural scripts aggression triggers key to our presence. So it was never meant to be a contest. It was a culling. Above, the crowd cheered wildly. The Inferno twins were fighting for their lives, and the galaxy thought it was theater. The sand cracked beneath their feet. A tremor pulsed through the arena floor. Everything stopped. From a hidden pit in the center, the sand collapsed. A second lift rose, carrying something enormous, silent, and pulsing with unnatural gravity. Olivarch's. Its body was fluid obsidian, limbs shifting like liquid metal, eyes like dark stars. Around it, the very air bent. Time lagged. Kaelen blinked, and when his eyes opened, Olivarch's had moved 10 meters without seeming to shift. Gravity warped. Kaelen felt his boots sink into the ground, his bones groan. Saphira swore, launching a shot that drifted slowly, frozen midair until the field flexed again. The other warriors faltered. One of the Velareth twins screamed as her body was pulled sideways into a kinetic wall. The Sargon brute punched the air but missed by miles. The insectoid collapsed under its own weight. Kaelen forced his limbs to move. It's generating localized time distortions. Tactical gravity waves. Saphira was already moving or trying to. She flickered in and out of phase with her armor's motion compensators. Her voice came delayed, like an echo trying to catch up. We have to destabilize the field. Cancel the resonance. Kaelen nodded. Opposing wave interference. Speed against control. He ran. Time resisted him, pulled at his motion like thick liquid, but he leaned forward, burned energy cells, and forced his body past the drag. He circled the creature, drawing its gaze. Saphira mirrored him on the other side. Olivarch's reacted, its head twisting unnaturally, limbs warping as it prepared to strike both at once. They broke formation. Kaelen dove forward. Saphira backflipped high, kicking off a support column. Both moved in perfect sync, crossing trajectories midair, creating a resonance pattern that forced the creature's field to vibrate. It howled. The air snapped. For a second, all sound vanished. Then light exploded outward. Obelivarx collapsed, its form spasming, its core exposed. Kaelen landed hard, rolled, grabbed a shattered spear from the fallen brute, and flung it. Saphira leapt from behind, driving her blade into the core as the spear struck. Obelivarx shattered. Silence returned. And then the crowd didn't cheer. They stared. Not with joy. With confusion. Whispers replaced roars. The illusion cracked. Why had only Kaelen and Saphira survived? Why had the others attacked them first? Why did the final monster bend reality itself? Across the galaxy, on screens and feeds, watchers began to ask. Kaelen rose slowly. He looked up at the drones. They were still filming. Still feeding the narrative. But now people were questioning the script. Kaer Thalos was burning. The fire didn't come from rebellion or riot. It came from the hands of the man who built it. Veyrandal stood in the skybridge above the central control spire, his hand resting lightly on a terminal pulsing with red glyphs. His face was calm. The world he designed was ending, and he was the one writing the last page. Across the control screens, images of collapsing structures, failing dome shields, and fracturing energy cores spiraled. A cascade of flame climbed the outer walls of the arena. Towers fell like ancient statues crumbling into the sea. Erase it all, he whispered. Let the myth die with the city. In the emergency tunnels beneath the eastern wing, Kaelen and Saphira ran through a maze of firelight and smoke, Lyra half-conscious between them. Marlowe limped behind, dragging a burned pack of neural disruptors. The collapse was accelerating. No more alarms. Only rumble and chaos. Then blocked path. A wall of plasma shielding sealed the exit tunnel. Beyond it, freedom. Behind them, fire. No bypass, Marlowe muttered, scanning the edge. The override's on the other side. We're boxed in. Lyra stirred weakly. Her lips moved. We're not. From behind, a voice. Step back. Drace. He emerged from the smoke, armor scorched, one eye flickering with glitching light. No weapons. Just a salvaged charge pack and the look of a man who had finally decided what mattered. Kaelen stepped forward. You came back. Drace didn't meet his eyes. Doesn't matter. Just move. He planted the charge at the plasma gates junction and turned to Lyra. You saved me once. Now I return the favor. Saphira's voice cut in. You won't survive the blast radius. Drace smiled faintly. I'm not supposed to. He slammed the trigger. A flash. A roar. Then the shield flickered, vanished. But Drace was gone. They moved. Fast. Out into the ruins. Above, in the central spine of the arena's power core, Veyron's override codes pulsed brighter. Final phase, total purge. A white-hot storm gathered in the atmosphere, drawing energy from the remaining core systems. Then something changed. A tone. Low. Vibrating. In the control node above the spire, Saphira stepped into the central chamber. Her armor burned, her face bruised, but her eyes silver and violet glowed like stars being born. Override accepted, the system intoned. Neural resonance, level Omega. She stepped to the core terminal and placed both hands on the node. Her voice was steady. And the illusion? The sound that followed wasn't heard, it was felt. A pulse rolled outward, not light, not heat, but truth. Her neural pattern ignited every interface in the city. Subconscious commands collapsed. Weapons powered down. Defense fields reversed polarity. AI targeting systems glitched and shut off. Every mind once linked to the system snapped free. And Veyron screamed. He felt the rupture in his code like a wound in the soul. The city, his symphony, was out of tune. He descended into the heart of the ruins, where Kaelen waited. Among the broken pillars and burning glass, they met. Not as warrior and tyrant, but as the last two architects of what came next. You could have ruled it, Veyron said, his voice cracked. You could have been the flame, not the match. Kaelen didn't answer. He charged. They collided with fists and fury. One enhanced by tech, the other by defiance. Sparks flew from shattered gauntlets. Metal tore. Bone cracked. They fell into flame, into memory, into everything they'd been and tried to forget. Veyron drove Kaelen back, powered by rage and betrayal. Kaelen gritted his teeth, feinted left, and struck Veyron's chest unit hard. It cracked. Exposed, a shard of Oblavarx's core, embedded deep. Kaelen's eyes widened. He understood. He reached for the core. Pulled it free. It began to pulse. Veyron froze. You wouldn't. Kaelen whispered, you already did. He slammed the core into a cracked resonance node. The effect was instant. A surge of anti-field energy exploded outward, ripping the control matrix apart. Veyron tried to scream, but his voice was drowned in a sonic crescendo. His form splintered flesh to data, data to dust. His perfect face cracked like porcelain. His cybernetic spine burst in a bloom of sparks. The architect was no more. Kaelen dropped to one knee, catching his breath as the city groaned around him. Light dimmed. Towers collapsed. And above him, the sky finally cleared. No fire. Just stars. And silence. The arena no longer stood. Kaer Thalos had become a crater, a monument to something once worshipped, now broken. The wind carried ash instead of song. Towers that once touched the stars lay in twisted ruin. The great voice of the crowd, once omnipresent, was silent. And in the silence, something else emerged. Breath. The breath of a world trying to begin again. Kaelen opened his eyes to filter light and the hum of repurposed tech. His chest ached with every movement. Muscles burned. But he was alive. Or something like it. Marlowe hovered nearby, pale and wild-eyed, adjusting the final stabilizer on the regeneration pod. I told them it was a myth, he muttered. Told them Bantak never stayed dead. Guess we both proved a point. Kaelen's voice cracked. How long? 4 hours since the core detonation. You were gone for 2. I brought you back with a prototype stolen, illegal, and gloriously unstable. You've got a day, maybe 2, before the charge fades. Maybe more if Lyra can stabilize the neural shell. Kaelen sat up. Pain lanced through him, but clarity followed. The sky overhead was clearer than he remembered. No drones. No cameras. Just wind. He looked past the ridge where the arena once towered. Now only broken stone and fractured steel remained. Lyra was there, kneeling by a crate of glowing drives. Her skin pale, eyes flickering. She held a data pad in one hand, feeding in lines of code. I salvaged the central stream matrix, she said without looking. The e-pulse didn't just control. It recorded. With this, we can decrypt the entire network. Every manipulation. Every lie. Kaelen stood slowly. Broadcast it. Not as a weapon. As a reckoning. Lyra nodded once. Already done. Across 1,000 worlds, the truth had arrived. Screens that once played blood sport now showed fear graphs, timeline manipulations, emotional doping logs. In cities once blind, people stood still. Then they marched. The system hadn't just collapsed. It had been unmasked. Saphira stood at the crater's edge. Her armor was scuffed, her face streaked with ash. The wind caught strands of her hair, now loose from its warrior tie. She didn't turn when Kaelen approached. "You should be resting," she said. "So should you." A long silence stretched between them. Finally, Kaelen asked, "What now, Flame of Leviathan?" She shook her head. "No. Not anymore." The flame was an idea. A symbol. But I've burned too long. I'm not a flame. I'm the smoke that remained. Kaelen stood beside her. Below them, the remains of Kaer Thalos still smoldered. "Then what do we call you?" She exhaled. "A survivor?" They didn't speak again for a while. Others gathered behind them. Marlowe, limping but smiling. Lyra, now upright, the data core strapped to her back. A few of the freed fighters, nameless, once pawns, now people. No one cheered. No one raised banners. There was no victory song. Only a moment. A breath. And in that breath, choice. Kaelen looked out over the ruin and thought not of battle, but of beginnings. There would be chaos. Fracture. Resistance. But there would also be possibility. He turned to the group. "This crater won't be a scar. It'll be a seed." Marlowe snorted. "That's poetic. I hate it." Lyra smiled faintly. "Then it's probably the right line." The sun crept over the far rim of the crater. It painted the broken walls in gold. Light fell across the fallen columns and silent towers. It touched Kaelen's face, then Saphira's, then the others. And for the first time, they didn't flinch. They let it touch them. Far in the distance, other shapes moved. Survivors. Fighters. Citizens. They came not for vengeance. Not yet. They came because the story had ended. And they needed to write something new. Kaelen took one last breath of ash-sweet air and stepped forward. The arena was gone. The crowd was gone. All that remained was fire waiting to be kindled again. But this time not for war. For awakening.